Hello viewers and welcome to another episode of Trashtalk on Flying Circus, Flights of Fancy Special, where I talk about the planes in the book. In this episode, let's talk about planes from Flights of Fancy, a flying circus plane pack full of cutting-edge prototypes. However, they remain prototypes for many reasons, from genuine flaws, political meddling, or just being too bloody expensive to make. So of course we are gonna start with a plane that, genuinely speaking, should not have existed at all. The Model X Falke was intended to be Macchi's next-generation fighter, built on the promise of a truly revolutionary 320 horsepower radial engine. These engines were so impressive that the WO3 230 HP engines, among the most powerful in the world, were considered mere stopgaps on the path to the true engine of the Model S. Unfortunately, the Breitbusch Libelle 320 HP radial was plagued by delay after delay, issues with suppliers and material shortages as the war turned against Macchi. Finally, in the last month of the war, production was ordered to begin. Engine readiness be damned, it was now or never. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the revolutionary engine really wasn't, producing 30 less horsepower than advertised. Still, the Ritter Model X was one of the fastest scouts ever deployed, for 15 minutes. Past that point, the cylinders had a rather charming habit of catching on fire. Macchi's enemies were only aware they'd face the new fighter well after the war ended, partially because they were constantly grounded for engine repairs. Nobody knows how many Model X flew, how many engines were built, or where any of them ended up, but at least a handful have been spotted in the hands of lucky foolish mercenaries. At first glance, the Ritter Model X Falke looks insane, for boost, decent climb, and a truly amazing speed. Then you look down and see this: for every RPM the engine took, you only have 15% chance to not wear out your engine, which is ridiculously low. I recommend a fire extinguisher. This basically sums up the whole plane, and yes, this thing is real. It's called Sopwith Dragon, probably because it can spontaneously go in flame, and the engine is called the ABC Dragonfly, which was plagued by multiple serious issues, like the fact its air-cooled copper-plated fins were so useless, the engine would glow dull red at normal operation and turn bits of the propeller into charcoal. Worse, the engine also worked at resonance frequency of its crankshaft, which caused it to rapidly destroy itself and give the engine a service life of 35 hours, max. Well, at least the airframe can still be salvaged, and the plane does have a few nice features like decent drop-off, decent fuel, 2 machine guns with telescopic sight, and oxygen mask. How do you use this thing? I would like to say no, but I doubt that would deter some morons, I mean brave daring pilots, from flying the plane to their grave. My suggestion: do things fast, dogfight, shoot down planes, go home, do these fast, and your engine might just not try to kill you. If you can't, get the fuck out, that's always an option. You are in a very powerful plane that has an operational time of like 10 minutes, don't drag it too long, or your life will end too short. This thing also has no variant, for obvious reason, but if you want to burn out fast and bright like a candle, actually no, not even a candle, if you want to burn fast and bright like aluminium foil in microwave oven, this is the plane you want. If your friends didn't stop you in time, like what the fuck, don't actually fly this thing. Next, there's the von Morgen Walküre, the armored scout. Among the last of the von Morgen designs, this ground attack plane was built in direct response to encounters with Ritter Model TF ground attackers. The Gotha Empire would have the advantage of both numbers and logistics in a war with Fokker, so attack planes which could make up the difference on the ground were high priority. An odd duck among von Morgen designs, the Walküre lacks cantilever struts, as it was designed to be built in the factories which produced the licensed Cobra MD copies. Wartime pressure meant they wanted as few changes to tooling as possible, while the armor was produced in a separate facility which normally made tank parts. The Walküre entered serial production and a limited number of units were produced, but it never saw service in its intended role, deployed to forward operating bases in anticipation of a Gotha invasion that never materialized, useless for stopping bombers, and seen as clumsy and slow by the subsequent deserters fleeing the bases. They were left to rust in aerodromes where many remain to this day. Walküre means Valkyrie in German. I probably would not have paid attention to this until I felt it sounded very familiar, and, oh, that's why. The von Morgen Walküre is a decently fast plane with tough frame, but it is somewhat sluggish with its handling and power because of its armor, which lets it take small arms fire somewhat effectively. Other than that, it has 2 forward machine guns with collimated gun sight for better accuracy, and 4 massive bomb. It's also a very stable plane with a more reliable engine than the Falke, but then again anything would be more reliable than that. There's only one problem, you can't see shit with all the wings in the way, and if you get in a dogfight, you gonna need those armors because you will be taking more hits from being more sluggish than most of your opponents, especially with that 2-turn bleed, but when performing ground attack, which the Walküre is designed for, it definitely excels in that aspect. As for its variants, there's two, the Panzerlanes variant which replaces the machine guns and bombs with a single wing-mounted light repeating cannon, usually with AP rounds to shoot tanks apart. This thing would be so useful in a certain upcoming expansion, and it's just as sluggish as the base variant. Then there's also the Deserter Escape Plan variant, which just removes all the armor and calls it a day. This massively improves the handling and power of the plane, but also makes it not as tough as before. As a conclusion, if you can afford the von Morgen Walküre, you are the queen of the sky against those below, just beware of those that are above you. Lastly, there's Hugos Metalicious Jagged Flux, another all-metal plane by Hugo. Sibling to the two-seater, this bizarre and ungainly aircraft was probably the most produced of all the Hugo variations, copied either under license or illegally by the Gotha Empire as the Kreutzer A9Käfer, the Fokker Kingdoms as the KWJ, and the Kingdom of Sopwith where it was simply designated Metal Scout Type 1. Combat trials were held for the machine in all these nations, some fielding them in fair numbers. In the end, however, it was never accepted as a standard design by anyone, its production costs were simply too high, and few pilots reported on the heavy clumsy machine favorably. Bizarrely, however, the Metalicious Jagged Flux has seen something of a post-war renaissance. Their sheer toughness makes them an attractive proposition in a world where replacements aren't forthcoming, and several industrial towns have had great success producing new versions using the blueprints due to their wide availability. Though a dead end in its own time, Hugo's metal fighter may well be the future of aircraft design. We have the Hugos Ganz Metal Wunderflugzeug, an armored full metal scout that's slow as molasses, Hugos Einzigartiger Stahljagdbomber, a full metal fighter bomber that's just slightly faster, and now, we have this, the Hugos Metalicious Jagged Flugzeug. This thing is fast, and turns surprisingly well, though the turn bleed leaves something to be desired, not that it matters that much since it's built like an energy fighter with that high overspeed. It's also tough as all hell, has 2 machine guns, an oxygen mask to let pilot dogfight better in this full metal aircraft. Its engine reliability is bad, but nothing a bit of glycol could solve, and if you are buying this plane, you probably have enough money to make it a touch better anyway. Use it like how you would use the previous full metal aircrafts. You are so tough, you can shrug off some mistakes, and sooner or later, you will outlast your opponent when they make one too. The fact that this thing has good handling and speed helps it out. As for the variant, there's the PF Militia variant, which replaces the engine with a Brandt Courier 16 engine which is more reliable and lighter, allowing an addition of a scattergun spinner gun, adding even more firepower to the plane. It's really good. The Hugos Metalicious Jagged Flugzeug, whether or not it's the final product made by the man himself, is really the culmination of everything he has learned when making his full metal wonder plane. Fast, tough, and deadly, it really got it all. And that's all on these 3 airplanes, from the powerful Ritter Model X Falke that unfortunately don't last very long, the armored von Morgen Walküre made to deal with ground attacker but never got a chance to, and the all-metal Hugos Metalicious Jagged Flugzeug that might just show a glimpse of the future of air flight. Anyway, that's all for now, and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.